Hi, my name is Lily and welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be telling you all about my top 20 books of 2020. Normally I would do a top 10 and I thought that this year I was going to struggle with finding 10 books to list for you for my top 10. It turns out that was just my depression fog speaking and I actually couldn't narrow it down to 10 and I even struggled to narrow it down to 20, but I thought 20 books of 2020 was okay, and considering I read around 94 books I think in 2020, then 20 is not too big a proportion of it. I have ranked these books and I would say the portion of the 20 that they sit in is accurate, but their exact positioning is not. So I'd say the bottom 5 are definitely my bottom 5 of the 20 and my top 5 are definitely my top 5. But within the top 5, bottom 5 and like the middle sections, you could easily switch a lot of them around, I think. So I don't want this video to go on for too long, so I'm just going to go straight into my top 20 books of 2020. Coming in at number 20 is A Kind of Spark by Elle McNichol. This is a middle grade contemporary. It's about a young girl named Addie who is autistic and also has an autistic older sister. She finds out one day on a school trip that her village in Scotland had executed 4 witches hundreds of years ago, and that people still didn't understand why that was such a bad thing. As she's autistic, she completely sees how people could be persecuted for being an outsider, so she wants to create a memorial to these witches as a way of saying sorry for what they did and to say that they are now accepted. And it's kind of about Addie's journey to trying to get this memorial approved by the village and also just trying to get herself accepted by her peers at school. And it's really, really good. I would highly recommend it if you are not autistic and you want to understand what it's like to exist in the world as an autistic person. It's actually own voices and Elle McNichol is a really, really great writer. I am just raving about this book because I think it's incredibly good. If you are autistic, I would warn you that this could be quite triggering because there's a lot of ableism towards autistic people in it. But I feel like it's handled well and it's all called out, so just go into it with a bit of care if you could be triggered by that. At number 19, I have Mexican Gothic by Silvia Moreno Garcia. This is actually my only book on the entire top 20 that isn't 5 stars. I rated it 4 stars because the first half was a bit too slow and dry for me, but the reason it still made it into my top 20 video is that it really has stuck with me after I finish it and I can't stop thinking about it. This is set in Mexico, and young Noemi, who is a socialite in Mexico, gets a letter from her cousin Catalina saying that since she's married her husband and moved in with him, things are going wrong and that she needs Noemi to come and save her. Noemi, with her father's permission, goes to see her cousin and see what's going wrong. Her cousin's family lives in this massive English mansion that was built by English immigrants in the countryside, and everything seems to be a bit creepy and a bit disturbing. Everyone's very quiet and everything seems a bit off, but Noemi can't figure out what's going on and her cousin definitely seems out of sorts, so it's all up to Noemi to try and figure out what is going on. This is an adult horror/thriller. I'd say the first half of the book kind of reads more like a historical drama and it's a lot more about the family drama, and then about halfway through you get the big horror reveal and that's when it very rapidly turns into a horror book, and it just blew my mind. I loved this so much. The twist was amazing. It's very dark and very wrong, and that's what I really love about this book, and that's often why people actually didn't like this book, but for me that made it. And it's just I was so surprised. I didn't guess what was coming. I was fully convinced I knew exactly what was going to happen and I didn't. So I thought it was incredibly well written. There's a really good romance in it as well that you can see blossoming throughout. I couldn't recommend this book highly enough sometimes. Coming in at number 18, I have Finn and Rye and Fireflies by Harry Cook. This is an advanced reader's copy, but it wasn't given to me as a PR copy. I won it in a giveaway. This is a young adult contemporary about a boy called Finn, who at the start of the book we find him kissing this boy who has a massive crush on from his school, only to find out it's all a joke and that his parents have been told all about it and he's essentially outed to everyone in his small town. His parents are incredibly religious and don't accept him, so they decide to uproot the whole family and move to another small town in the hopes that this place will be more religious and he will basically become like converted back to straight. Unfortunately for them, he meets this girl called Poppy and her girlfriend June, and they get on like a house on fire, and he also meets a really beautiful boy called Rye. So this book is the sweetest book. The romance is so sweet. Both of them are such little cinnamon rolls and I love them so much, and Poppy and June are so cute together as well and I love them as characters. It's a really, really great uplifting story with a lot of queer characters. It also deals with conversion therapy, which is really interesting because I haven't read much around conversion therapy. I just hear people talking about it. So it was really interesting to read a book from the perspective of someone who ends up going to conversion therapy. Of course, that means it's a very heavy book, but I would still say it's so worth the read. It's really sweet, but really sad at the same time. It's such a bittersweet novel. I'm kind of cheating for the next part, but for number 17, I have Strange the Dreamer and Muse of Nightmares by Laini Taylor. I'm listing both because I actually can't remember which one I liked better. I know I definitely liked one of them better, but I just can't remember which one it was. Strange the Dreamer follows Laszlo Strange, who has been obsessed with the mythical lost city of Weep since he was 5 years old. Now as an adult, an opportunity presents itself. Some travellers claiming to be from Weep arrive in his town and say that they need the help of someone in the town who's very famous to help them solve a problem that is plaguing Weep. Strange takes the opportunity to present himself to the men that arrive by speaking to them in their lost language, which no one else knows. They are so impressed that they take Laszlo with them. And it's all about Laszlo's journey to Weep and then what happens once he arrives in Weep and finds out what's going on. It's really incredible. It's this kind of hovering between sci-fi and fantasy. Like, it's very definitely a fantasy, but there's still some slight sci-fi elements to it that I've really loved. And again, it kind of borders between young adult and adult. It's definitely more adult, and I say it should probably be shelved with adult books, but it is a good bridging between young adult and adult because it's not too dry and heavy in the way that some adult fiction can be. I really liked these. I thought they were incredibly original and imaginative. I did predict some of the plot twists. I did get a bit frustrated with Laszlo at times, but I still really enjoyed it and I rated both of them 5 stars. Book number 16 for me was The Flatshare by Beth O'Leary. This was one of the first adult romances I've ever read and I really enjoyed it. I was so pleasantly surprised. The Flatshare is about two millennials, Tiffy and Leon. Tiffy works at a book publisher's and Leon is a medical professional. They come to an agreement that they will share the same flat and even the same bed, but occupy it at different times. So Leon has the flat during the day when he sleeps because he works night shifts, and Tiffy has the flat at nights and weekends while Leon is working and with his girlfriend. They begin communicating with post-it notes and it is the cutest, sweetest love story I've ever read. I really enjoyed it. It was really quirky and funny, and I part listened to it via audiobook and that was just so good. I'd highly recommend that. This is the kind of adult romance that I would say is a really great bridging book again if you're moving out of the YA romance genre into adult romance. This has a lot of the quirky, silly funniness of YA romance, but it has that adult touch to it and I really enjoyed it. Book number 15 is Orbiting Jupiter by Gary Schmidt. This is a really short book. It's a kind of middle grade / YA. It's a kind of older middle grade / younger YA book. So again, another good transition book if you are in between those two genres. This is about two boys, Jack and Joseph. Jack lives in a rural farm with his family and Joseph is his new foster brother. He only knows 3 things about Joseph. The first is that he tried to kill his teacher, the second is that he has been incarcerated, and the third is that he has a daughter. And as young teenagers, this is very unusual. When he meets Jack, he doesn't find out until later that Jack is absolutely desperate to be reunited with his daughter and that he hasn't seen her since he was incarcerated. Jack is desperate to help Joseph find his daughter, and that is how the story unfolds. This is a really tragic story about love, loss and family. It will really tug at your heartstrings. I nearly cried reading the ending of it. It is incredibly touching. I really liked the naive perspective we get by looking at everything through Jack's eyes, and that was just so good. I thought the character development as well was incredibly well written, and for such a short book, so you can see how tiny this is, it just does so much, and I just cannot believe how amazing this book was when I actually just traded this on Depop on a whim. So really great win for me. Book number 14 is A Heart So Fierce and Broken by Bridget Kemmerer. This is the second book in the A Curse So Dark and Lonely series, or the Curse Breakers series. I can't really summarise it because I don't want to spoil the end of A Curse So Dark and Lonely, but this follows Gray, who is one of the kind of side characters in the first book, as he tries to accept his identity, I guess. I don't know, it's hard to give you any idea of what this is without completely spoiling the first book. But this is a really good sequel, and I think I actually preferred it to the first book. I really loved Gray and Liamara's interactions and their chemistry. I found them really great and they bounce off each other well. I absolutely love Liamara as a character because she's bookish and quiet and she tries to solve things through diplomacy and talking, which is exactly what I'd be like in a fantasy novel. So I just love this. It was like a little cute, really good young adult fantasy, and I'm just blown away by this series, how it just keeps me guessing at all points. Book number 13 is The Knife of Never Letting Go by Patrick Ness. This is the first book in the Chaos Walking trilogy. I'm actually reading these for the first time because the movie adaptation is coming out really soon. The Knife of Never Letting Go tells the story of Todd and Viola. Todd grew up in a town solely occupied by men, and they all have this thing called noise, which is where they can all hear each other's thoughts and they can't really control it. And he is led to believe that the infection that gave them all noise killed off all the women in his town. But one day he is walking around in the swamps and he finds a girl, and this girl doesn't have any noise. And when his guardians find out about this, they tell him he has to go on the run because it's a dangerous thing to know. And everything kind of unfolds from there. It's just... I don't normally like dystopians. I'm very over dystopians because when I was like a tween, that's when the big dystopian boom happened with Divergent and The Hunger Games and all of those books. And I wasn't really a huge fan of any of them, and I still am not. But of course, there's always going to be those select few dystopians that grab you, like Slated by Terry did. And this is definitely one of them. The Knife of Never Letting Go just blew me away completely and I absolutely adored it. It's really gripping. It's kind of a thriller in some ways, and it's very young adult in a way that I really loved. And I just connected to the characters. I liked seeing things from both of their perspectives. It was just so good. I'm now on the third book and I should be finishing that soonish, and I can't wait to find out what happens at the end of this series. Number 12 I don't own physical copies of, and that is another cheap one because I can't decide which one I liked more, and they are Scythe and Thunderhead by Neil Shusterman. I listened to these via audiobook and I was so gripped. This was back at the time when I was living with my parents still, but lockdown rules allowed you to visit others, and I was driving an hour to go and see my boyfriend, and that's where I listened to most of these books, and they're just so good. It's set in a utopian world where no one dies of old age, so there's these people called scythes who go around and kill people, and they're kind of meant to randomly select who they kill. But of course things aren't always quite that simple, and there's corruption within the scythes, and the two main characters are basically being forced to go through scythe training even though they don't want to, and it's so good. It's so twisty. The third book in the trilogy was a bit of a letdown, I'm not gonna lie to you, but the first two are just incredible. They're really imaginative and the characters are really engaging. I just couldn't stop listening. Number 11 is Rooftoppers by Catherine Rundell. This is a middle grade and it's historical, kind of, I think. Yeah, it's historical. Rooftoppers is about Sophie and her guardian Charles. Sophie was found floating after a shipwreck in a cello case, and it's believed that her mother, who played the cello, is dead. But she believes that her mother is still alive. And when the authorities try to take Sophie away from Charles because they claim that Charles shouldn't be raising a young girl, they go on the run to Paris to try and find her mother. And in Paris, she goes onto the rooftop of their hotel and meets these children called the Rooftoppers, who are runaway children and orphans who all live on the rooftops, and they all join together to try and help Sophie find her mother. It's so enchanting, so sweet, and I love the characters so much. My only thing is that they all read a lot younger than they were supposed to be, but that didn't take away anything for me. I really enjoyed it still. We're now getting into the region of my top 10 books. So these really are my absolute favourites of the year. Of course, the other 10 were still really strong favourites, but these are definitely my top 10. Coming in at number 10 is The Black Flamingo by Dean Atter. This is a young adult contemporary, but it's written in verse, and I really enjoyed it. There's a slight mixed media element with some text messages in there as well. It's a coming of age story about Michael, who you kind of follow him growing up and coming into his own, and when he gets to university becoming the drag queen the Black Flamingo. And it's a really interesting look at what it's like to grow up as a black teen who's also gay. It's just a really unique and intriguing read, and I really loved the verse of it. Like, I really loved the verse. I thought it was really engaging and I couldn't stop reading. I loved it so much. At number 9 we have Wranglestone by Darren Charlton. This is a young adult horror slash thriller and it's set on Lake Wranglestone. This follows Peter, who lives on an island in Lake Wranglestone, and he and all the other people who live on the islands are hiding there away from these zombie-like creatures that live on the shore. And throughout the summer they're completely safe because these zombies can't cross the water, but in the winter the lake freezes over and the zombies can cross. We join Peter and the rest of the inhabitants of Lake Wranglestone as winter is approaching. At the start of the book, Peter accidentally lets a zombie onto the island and gets into huge trouble for it, and as a result the other islanders think that he should be sent to the mainland to learn what it's like to move around amongst the zombies and to defend their home. He has this big crush on a boy called Cooper who also lives there, and Cooper's kind of the all-around good boy, outdoorsy hero of the village, whereas Peter is much more of a homemaker kind of person. It's a really, really great imaginative zombie story, and it takes zombies in a completely different direction to how I've seen done before. And what I really enjoyed it is there's a male-male romance in this, and it's woven in completely seamlessly and you don't kind of question it. No one else in the book questions it. It's not a big thing. It's just two boys have a crush on each other, and I really, really like that. Coming in at number 8 is The Adventure Zone Petals to the Metal by the McElroy brothers and Kerry Peach. This is the 3rd book in the Adventure Zone graphic novel series, which is an adaptation of the podcast by the same name, and I love these graphic novels so much. I've never actually listened to the podcast. I think I will do one day, but at the moment I want to read all the graphic novels first and get the story from the graphic novels first and then go back and listen to the podcasts. And honestly, like, I can't recommend these highly enough. They follow the little band of heroes and it's them going on their adventures that happened in their D&D campaigns that were on the podcasts. So it's really creative and really imaginative. It's so funny, super diverse, and I just love the fact that they're playing Dungeons and Dragons, but they're not really playing it in the traditional way, and they're kind of just doing what they want, and that makes it so much funnier and more interesting to read about. And yeah, this is so good. Every book in the series so far, this is the 3rd one, has all been amazing. They all deserve to be on my top list of the year that I read them, so yeah, I love these books so much. Number 7 on my list is Viper by Bex Hogan. This is a young adult fantasy novel set at the high seas. So this is about Marianne, and her dad is the Viper in this country, or kingdom I guess, and the job of the Viper is to defend the islands and the kingdom, but he is kind of going rogue and is very brutal and is doing a lot of bad things, and Marianne doesn't agree with this. She should, in theory, be taking over the Viper role when she reaches old enough and her father dies, but she wants to stage a mutiny and take over. But of course things don't quite happen that smoothly, and it's kind of about Marianne having to go on the run and fight back against her father, who is this incredibly dark and vicious man. This book is plot twist after plot twist after plot twist, and I loved it so much. I didn't predict any of them, and it's just amazing. I wish these books would get more love than they do, and I can't recommend them highly enough. The second one is called Venom, and that's already out, and it's also incredible. It didn't make it onto my top 20 list, and I don't know why. It's probably like 21. The final book, Vulture, is coming out this year, so get on reading this, folks, because this series is one that you shouldn't be missing out on. Number 6 is Woven in Moonlight by Isabel Ibanez. I have spoken about this book a lot on my channel, and that is because I just love this so much. This follows Ximena, who is the decoy for the Condessa of her people. She is the last royal family member for the entirety of their people. They were driven out by some usurpers who have now shown up on the door saying that they want the Condessa to marry their new king. So the decoy Ximena is sent in her place because no one knows that she's actually a decoy. And while she's there, Ximena is meant to be working undercover to help the resistance get back in and take over again. But while she's there, she discovers that it's not quite as black and white as she had been taught, and that maybe they don't deserve the throne. And there's also a masked bandit going around helping to rescue all the people that get imprisoned. It's a much different book to what I was expecting, but I still loved it so much. The description is absolutely beautiful. It's based on Bolivian folklore, I think, and it's so incredible. Ximena has this ability to weave with moonlight, and that means that she can weave secret messages into her tapestries because only her people can see what she has woven in with the moonlight thread. And it's just so clever. I loved the magic in this book so much, and I really liked the discussion of usurpers and I guess colonization and who really deserves to be in charge and how to rule a country. So this book is a really great like political fantasy, but it's not too heavy on the political side, and it's just really great characters. I think the characters really make this book. We are now into the top 5, and I'm so excited to share with you my top 5 books. These are books I absolutely was just blown away by and can't stop raving about. Number 5 is Splinters of Scarlet by Emily Bain Murphy. This is a young adult fantasy, and I just can't believe it's not any more popular than it is. This follows Marit, who has been orphaned, and her older sister has also died, and she ends up in an orphanage. There she befriends and becomes very close with a young girl called Eve. Eve gets adopted by a very wealthy family, and Marit decides that she's not sure if she can trust this family because this family is responsible for the death of her father, who died working in their mines. So she manages to get herself onto the household staff so that she can keep an eye on Eve. And the way she does that is she secretly has magic that means that she can sew just by using her hands, so she can just magically fix seams and things like that. In this house, most of the staff has magical abilities, but there's danger with using magic, and the more you use, the more likely you are to freeze from the inside out. And that just adds this extra element. But there's also the element in the book of she knows that something happened to her father and that he didn't die in an accident as is being said, and she's trying to figure out what really happened in the mine that day. So this is a historical fantasy, it's YA, and it's got a really strong mystery element, and I just loved everything about it. I had no idea where anything was going. You can kind of see the breadcrumbs once you get all the big reveals, but it's really difficult to put it together when you're reading it. I really love that about the book. It's just a beautiful fantasy world, so incredibly well written. The romance is really sweet. And I just loved the characterization of everyone, and I love the descriptions. I really liked the different setting because it's set near Copenhagen, so it's not just set in the UK or in America. So I really like that different element to it. This book is definitely one that I just can't stop raving about. Number 4 was I Was Born for This by Alice Oseman. I don't own a physical copy of this because I listened to the audiobook, which I would highly recommend. This tells the story of 2 different personalities. Angel Rahimi is absolutely obsessed with this boy band called The Ark. It's in her entire world, and she pins all of her hopes and dreams on them. Jimmy Cargarici is the front man of The Ark, and he is battling with some really strong anxieties and is starting to question whether he wants to stick with his career. So you get to switch between these 2 personalities, Angel Rahimi and Jimmy Cargarici, and they are really strong separate voices, which is a really great start for a multiple POV book, but they're also incredibly different, but their lives are interwoven thanks to Angel's obsession with The Ark. It follows Angel as she travels to London to go to a concert, and Jimmy as he is moving around and trying to navigate the world after a big scandal is revealed. It's a really great book that focuses first on Jimmy's mental health and how anxieties can really work their way into your daily life and affect everything around you, and also how fandom and obsession is not the most healthy thing when you see Angel. I really liked both discussions. I grew up in the fandom world, so I really related to Angel in some ways. I can't say I ever got to Angel's level of obsession, but I definitely knew a lot of people that did. So I found it so interesting to read about someone like me and my friends. I also really liked Jimmy's depiction because I thought it was a really honest depiction of what it's like to be in the limelight, because once you read about actual celebrities' lives, that's what they're more like rather than these glitzy lives that are often featured in books. And I just couldn't stop listening. It's so addictive and so well written. Alice Oseman really does have a talent, and it's just, oh, it's so good. Definitely look up the trigger warnings if you have any, because there are a few in this book, but I really enjoyed it and I thought it was just a page turner. Number 3 is Aurora Burning by J. Kristoff and Amy Kaufman. This is the second book in the Aurora Cycle trilogy. It's really hard to say Aurora, but this I can't really summarize all too well because I don't want to ruin the first book for you. But the first book follows this squadron of the last picks of their class. So what happens is the leader, Tyler, is meant to be travelling back to the squad base to pick his team, and he scored the highest points, so he should be picking first. But when he's travelling through this part of space, he comes across a girl floating there, and she shouldn't be alive, she shouldn't be there, but he rescues her anyway and takes her back. And in doing so, he ends up being very, very late and ends up with all of the last picks for his squad. And it turns out that this girl holds the key to bigger things at play, so they all have to go on the run together. And that's the first book. So I can't really tell you too much about this one, but this was so good, so thrilling, so unexpected. I didn't know where anything was going. I predicted a few things, some things were a little bit predictable, but the rest of it I was so surprised by. I really liked how the relationships developed in this book and how we saw a better side and saw more into some of the more side characters. So if you love a good sci-fi, the Aurora Cycle series really is for you. Now we're into my top 2, and the second one honestly only just got pipped out of the first position at the last minute. Well, not even at the last minute, because I read number 1 before I read number 2, but number 2 just didn't quite knock number 1 off its top spot, and I think I'm going to surprise a few people when I say this, but my number 2 choice is Ninth House by Leigh Bardugo. I genuinely thought this was going to be my number 1 read, but by the time I finished it I was like, no, I still didn't love this as much as I loved number 1. So, Ninth House is about Alex Stern. She's offered a free ride to Yale on the condition that she joins this group that monitors the secret societies of Yale, because the secret societies are all using dark blood magic. Obviously, Alex is a little bit overwhelmed, and people are kind of questioning why she's been chosen, because she has a very rough background and she didn't even finish high school. But the reason that she's been chosen is because she can see greys, whereas everyone else has to take this special elixir to be able to see them. She can just see them naturally, and she can see them in full colour, which is incredibly unusual. The real kicking point for the book is that on campus a girl is found murdered, and they start to blame it on her boyfriend, but Alex knows that it's not quite right and things aren't adding up. She decides to investigate because she thinks the secret societies are involved. Now, this book has so many twists and turns that I just cannot believe it. I just didn't know what was going on any time, but I did just want to keep reading. I didn't want to put it down at all. And what I really liked is that Alex is not your typical protagonist. She is not good, but she's also not inherently bad. She's a very morally grey character. She is trying to do things for a good reason, but she chooses the wrong way to do things a lot of the time. And I really liked that about her. It meant that she did a lot of things I wasn't expecting, because I'm not used to that in a protagonist. I also wasn't predicting how all of the mysteries were going to unfold. So it's just, this book is something else. It's so incredible. But of course, this, if you didn't know, you may have heard about this when it first came out, has an awful lot of trigger warnings. So definitely look them up if you have any sort of trigger, because there's a lot of triggers in this book. But if you can handle it, it's totally worth it, because it's just incredible. The book that takes my number 1 spot I actually don't own, because I read it when I borrowed it from the library, and that is With the Fire on High by Elizabeth Aspedo. Now, I'm kind of surprised that this took number 1 spot, but the more I looked at my list, the more that was the one that had really made its way into my heart, and it's just a really amazing book. If you haven't read it, I can't recommend it highly enough. It's a young adult novel about a single teen mother who is an incredible, incredible chef, but she comes from a very disadvantaged background, doesn't have very much money, so she's trying to decide whether it's worth her going to college to become a chef or just to go and get a job to be able to support her daughter. And she takes part in this culinary class at school where she is offered the chance to go on a school trip to Spain, but they have to be able to fundraise their way. So it's told through food a lot of the time, and I really, really love that. I love food, I love cooking, and so this book really spoke to me on that level. I loved all the characters so much. The main character is just so pure and so lovable, and her daughter is, and I just wanted the best for her. And it's such a bittersweet novel, reading about this talent that she has and how amazing she is and how much people have this faith in her. But money is the thing holding her back. And it's a real testament to what can happen if you make things work and you try your hardest and try to find solutions. And it's so hopeful. That's, I think, what stuck with me, is it's such a hopeful book, that she knows she has this talent and she knows if she does the right things, she can get there. And I love this book so much. I really, really do. I kind of want to reread it in 2021 because it's just so good. So those were my top 20 books of 2020. I had such a difficult time ranking them except my last few, and honestly I loved them all. They were all absolute favourites. Most of them have gone onto my favourite shelf, and I can't stop raving about these books. You've probably heard me speaking about these so much in the last few months. Please do let me know down in the comments what your favourite books of 2020 were, especially if it's ones that you think I should be picking up. I love hearing about them. Thank you so much for watching this video. If you liked it, please give it a like and consider subscribing to see more content from me. All of my social media links are down in the description below. If you want to leave me a comment to let me know that you were here but you don't know what to say, leave me the smiley face emoji with the sunglasses on, because we are all cool dudes here. Thank you so much for watching. Bye!